So on the secondary front, it seems like they're all in on the Lattimore transaction they made. It's like, nope, we traded a third-round pick for that dude. We're going to make it work. He's going to be back. They have Sainer still. I would think re-signing Chin is a high priority for them. And then they've got Quan Martin. But there's the other corner spot. You can always supplement. You can always add more pieces.
Yep.
You know, Dan always rotated multiple safeties when he was in Dallas. So is there someone, there's like this clump of corners that a lot of people have in kind of the 30 to 45 range in their rankings. And I do believe that your rankings include that same clump of guys. Is there someone in that list that you particularly like that you think would be a good fit? Let's say outside, opposite of Lattimore, with saying we're still in the back in the nickel.
I'm a big Trey Amos guy from Ole Miss. Like I think that I think he's fantastic, man. I think he's got scheme versatility to him, but I think he also has the long arms. I think he's got the build of somebody that you want to play on the outside. And if they are going to continue to lean into that Lattimore acquisition, that Lattimore trade, well, Lattimore is good at being a man coverage guy. And it'll kind of burn them a little bit during the playoff when he was going up against Mike Evans. But traditionally, this is what he wants to do. He wants to be a dog and go one-on-one with somebody and play that cat coverage, if you will, where he just says, hey, don't let him catch the ball. And I think that's where he's most comfortable when he's fully healthy. Trey Amos, to me, is a great complement of that, as somebody who can give you that ability in man coverage on the outside as well. I think potentially, this is somebody who I think is kind of I don't know if I can say a sleeper type of a player for the Washington Commanders, but like Benjamin Morrison from Notre Dame, he went into this season.
Logan, that's one of your guys, right? Like you're big on him?
Well, I haven't done DBs specifically yet, but yeah, I do like Benjamin Morrison and stuff I have seen of him.
I mean, so he was somebody who had a really good sophomore year, not this past year, but the year before. And he goes into this season and they're playing him a little bit more with a little bit more versatility. I think he's that press man corner type of a player, a little bit smaller of a player, but he's feisty. He plays the position so well. I've talked to people who are in the Notre Dame program who are like, yeah, I mean, this dude is he's very smart. He picks it up very quickly. Sam Hartman, the former quarterback for Notre Dame,
Washington practice squad, Sam Hartman.
Okay, all right, that's good. That's good. They got the good. I didn't know off the top of my head where he was.
One of Jane Daniels' best friends. So
there you go.
Key member of the squad.
So he will be able to attest if they ask him about it, because he had this quote about Benjamin Morrison, and he was like, dude, he's just he prepares like a vet. He's so mature. Like the thing that he was so impressed with Morrison was how mature he was and how he approached the game. Morrison was a sophomore at the time. He wasn't even a junior. And so you're saying that about a true underclassman type of a player. Gets hurt this past year. He's got a hip injury, which definitely an issue, something that you got to monitor, because he wasn't even able to come back even from an extended national championship run for them. But from what I have heard, the hip should be fine. It was just something that it's not going to be something that he has to deal with for a long time. But he is somebody who is like, all right, because of the injury, you might not have to pick him in the first round. You might be able to get him sometime in the second round, which could be a great pull for the Commanders. But like those are a couple of guys that I'm thinking about at the very top that could make a lot of sense. I mean, Savone Revel is somebody who also makes sense, I think, from East Carolina, if you feel good about just the overall athletic ability and him being able to continue to improve in his technique and raising the floor of how he plays, because he's got all the athleticism in the world that you would want from the position. But those are the guys that I feel like most commonly I think about when I think about additions at the cornerback spot for the Commanders.
And, I think an interesting question coming off of that with the DB specifically is the injury history with that group. I feel like all of them are coming off of like missing significant time in their last year. So how do you kind of weigh that? How do you say, they were good in 2023? I mean, it's the same thing for some of the receivers also, maybe not injury related, but Luther Burton III is a guy that jumps out to me that was really good in 23, but not so good in 24. Mm-hmm. So injury, falling production, like how do you weigh where they're at? How do you kind of mitigate that risk in your mind to say like, I'm okay with him kind of having a lackluster year in 2024. Because some of the guys you mentioned are really good football players, but not in the stuff you've seen most recently.
It's hard. A lot of it is case-by-case stuff. You can't really have like a cookie cutter like, oh, okay, this guy got hurt. Now I'm going to ding him by,
it's a terrible sound by Trevor. We don't, you can't give, one rule doesn't fit everybody.
There's nuance for this.
You have to actually do the work.
Yeah, I wouldn't
just sit here on this side of the scouting combine where the medicals are happening over there and be like, blank slate, everybody's fine.
Yeah, I wouldn't draft Luther Burden, obviously. Yeah,
that's the soundbite we wanted.
You make my job easier because now I don't have to watch your tape. If you get hurt at all whatsoever, I just take you off the board, and there it is. There's my board. No, it's a case by case thing with a lot of these guys. For example, I'll start with lack of production. I look at Luther Burden, and his 2024 was definitely different from his 2023. But I feel like even in 2023, it was an offense that wasn't exactly ready to maximize everything that he brought to the table, and I think he was just a true sophomore at the time, and so he's somebody who's been one of the most athletically gifted players in any football field that he has stepped on, including the SEC. So he hasn't exactly needed to polish himself as a route runner or really take that to heart as much as he will in the NFL. 2024, the passing offense was terrible at Mizzou. Just all around. The execution, what they were asking him to do. Yeah, I think a lot of people look at the 2024 stuff for Burden and they go like, oh man, like it's just screens, it's just slants. Like this guy can't really run routes. I don't really think that was a Luther Burden thing. I think it was the offense thing. So I think context very important there. Another guy that I'll bring to the table, like Malachi Starks from Georgia. This one is the toughest evaluation for me because I thought he was excellent, especially given his age as a true freshman and true sophomore. And then this past year, he wasn't hurt, wasn't really doing anything different. He just wasn't as good. And I just did his full scouting report last week, and I'm watching some of these games, and he just judged things incorrectly. Like he just judged incorrectly when the football was going to get there, what the ball carrier was going to do. And so he's missing tackles and he's missing opportunities to make plays in coverage. And it's like, those are the ones that are tough because it's almost like if you had an injury,
right?
I could blame it on that.
But it's like, oh, you're not playing with Jalen Carter and those guys anymore.
And so maybe it's something like that. But at the end of the day, it was just like, he just wasn't as good this year.
Right.
And it's the truth of the matter. Like some guys they're allowed to have down years, right? You're allowed to have a down year, and that doesn't mean you're a terrible football player. You could easily bounce back the next year and things like that, but it's hard when you don't have a concrete justification of why you might have a down year, right? So that sort of goes into it.
It's worth pointing out, right? That's why the interviews here are so important because I'm a GM, I'm like, all right, so what happened this year, pal?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'd hope that he has an answer.
And they will put these guys on the whiteboard, and they will be like, all right, we're going to take a look at this play. Here's a good play that you made, and then we're going to put on a bad play. And you're going to go, okay, what happened here? Like there was, was it in that Clemson game? It might have been no, it was in the Texas game. I remember watching that Texas game, and there was a play down the right sideline where he's got an opportunity to, now, I believe it was in single high coverage, so it's tough, asking a guy to get from the middle of the field all the way to the sideline, but he's kind of there. Like he kind of gets there athletically.
Yeah.
He just completely misjudges where the ball is at the time. He doesn't make the play, and it's just explosive down the field that he had to make up for and go make a tackle down the field. And so they're going to put that on there, and they're going to be like, what happened here, bud? And hopefully he's able to say, like, I just judged it wrong. Like I thought he was throwing it more on a frozen rope than it was a little bit over the top. I wasn't ready for it to be sort of like a breadbasket over the shoulder type of a throw. I just totally judged it wrong. And that's something that, hopefully that he's got a good answer for. But we're kind of going off a tangent there. The injuries is the tough one because we don't really have the medical evaluation for these guys when they get to the combine. NFL teams do. And that's why a lot of these cases of, for example, like Johnny Newton for you guys last year.
Right.
I had Johnny Newton as a top 12 player in the class last year, and he ends up falling all the way to the second round for Washington to be able to take him there. And I'm like, man, what a steal. How in the world is Johnny Newton falling? And then sort of during the draft and after the draft, it kind of comes out. It's like, hey, he's got a foot injury that he's going to have to deal with
surgery on both feet.
Right. And so you learn those things a little bit later. And then it just comes down to, okay, well, teams didn't think that he was worth a first round pick, but Washington clearly thought he was worth a second round pick. And I think once you throw injuries into it, the range of where you could go as a prospect is just so vast.
For sure.
Yeah.